Thank you for joining our presentation today on Novell Filer. We'll be going through some great information as far as your academic environments and how we can help with enabling file sharing and helping with how users can access their files from mobile devices. Real important with tablets in schools these days. Joining us today as well is Ryan Radschlag. He's the network manager over at Hartford Joint No. 1 School District in Wisconsin. And he's actually going to be talking a little bit later on about how his district leverages Filer today. A couple of quick housekeeping items. Everyone's phone line is muted. So I do ask if you've got any questions as we go along, please type those into the chat window. And we will get to those a little bit later on in the presentation. We'll also have a live demonstration of Filer towards the end. So with that, let's go ahead and get started and again talk about sort of the challenges and how we got to today and then how Novell can actually help you. So if we look at just sort of the history of file sharing, there's a period of time in all of your schools where you really had tight control over the entire environment. You had your file servers sitting there. Perhaps there were Microsoft Windows file servers. There's a good chance at one point there were Novell Network file servers. I mean, obviously, we're sort of the godfathers when it comes to file and print networking, having done this since 1983, over 30 years now. But regardless of what the file server infrastructure was, you managed it, tight controls. All your students, your faculty, staff, they all sat behind the district's firewall or the college's firewall. And you really just, again, had tight control over where users were, what type of device they were using, the access that they wanted. This meant that you sort of acted as a traffic cop, and as time went along, a lot of times people weren't necessarily happy because they may have made some additional demands as far as what they would like to do with the data, how to get to it, where to get to it from. But regardless, that was the position that you in IT found yourself in, and at least it did overall make things a little bit easier in having that control. Now, as time moved along, users didn't appreciate the fact that they had to kind of be shackled behind using a machine in a lab or a computer that was in the classroom, right? They wanted to go ahead and get access to this information from other places, maybe share this information with other people. And so what we saw started to become a little popular for a while were things like, well, floppy disks, if you go back far enough. But as time moved along, especially with files getting larger and larger, people started to use USB thumb drives. Those obviously have dropped in price, so those became even more popular as today you could buy a 128 gig drive for maybe what a 128 meg drive would have cost you if you go back a number of years. Another real easy solution from an end-user perspective is email. Everyone has some sort of email solution, whether it's an on-prem solution or maybe you're using Google or you're using Microsoft Office 365. Regardless, you've got an email solution out there. It's a lot of times people would even resort to using that. Now, if it was a really large file, there could be some complications there, but still, there were some options at least to try to get access to your information. So a teacher could say, you know what, I want to work on this because I'm going to need it for class tomorrow. I'm going to email it to myself so that way when I get home I've got it, right, or copied it to a thumb drive. So what really started to disrupt things, though, were several aspects. First of all, you've just got internet connections becoming more prevalent and being a lot faster than they used to be. I mean, now you can't go to a coffee shop or an airport or a restaurant without having some Wi-Fi there. It may not be free, but there's at least Wi-Fi. And even these public internet connections are always very fast. To say nothing about what schools have. In every state it seems like there's some sort of program to get very high bandwidth connections coming into the schools to make sure that there is connectivity to the rest of the world. So there being these fast, high-speed connections available anywhere. We've also got tablets, smartphones, all these mobile devices becoming popular. Students now bringing those in, especially if we look at higher ed or we look at high school. You may not see it as much if you get into the lower grade levels with people bringing their own, but still you've got people accessing or wanting to access their information from these mobile devices. And the last thing is you've got these really consumer-oriented solutions for file sharing like Dropbox or Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive. These are all popular, but what they were born out of really was to say, I've got some family photos, or I have my I just got a pet puppy for Christmas. I want to share pictures of this with someone. You know, it wasn't ever really intended to be any kind of important data or sensitive data. And if we think about it, you know, you could have an admissions office have some important financial aid information that shouldn't be made public. You've got social security numbers of students and whatnot. If you're a special education student, you've got IEPs. So you've got all of this sensitive information in an academic setting that if it came out and was just made available to the public, it'd be a problem. And unfortunately, it happens. We actually have seen, you know, a number of different either outages, hacks. You know, all over the news very recently was the Heartbleed vulnerability, which actually did impact Dropbox and Box. I know there's another instance a few years back where Dropbox's authentication wasn't working for 4 hours. And by not working, I don't mean that people couldn't get in. I mean you could get in without even needing a password. You could access anyone's files as long as you had their email address. Their authentication system basically was allowing anything in and not actually checking credentials. So this is really scary stuff that's out there. And that's why with these solutions, you know, it becomes important to think, you know what, maybe there's another better way of doing this. To say nothing about, even if I don't worry about security, it's also very disruptive. You know, if I want to use Dropbox, if I want to use OneDrive, I've got to upload my files into that solution, right? So if I have all this content sitting on Novell file servers or Microsoft file servers, it doesn't matter. I can't use any of that, and I've got content in multiple places. There's internet bandwidth usage. Even with the bandwidth being increased over time, still, then if I have to use that extra bandwidth just to get access to my files, am I any better off? So all these things, you know, are a concern. So is there some way to fix this? Is there a better solution? And the answer is yes, with Novell Filer. So let's talk about what Filer is going to do. What we're going to do is this. We're going to say in your environment, we know you have all this storage out there. It could be Novell NetWare, it could be Novell Open Enterprise Server, Microsoft Windows, it could be NAS appliances, part of an AD domain. You know, we don't really care what that storage is. We just know users have data on there. Your students, faculty, staff, they have data they need to access, and they want to access it from a host of different devices. Mobile devices are definitely key, especially you see a lot of iPads. One-to-one initiatives in districts a lot of times is with iPads or Android tablets. But you've also got people saying, you know, especially in let's say the higher ed environment, students coming in, they've got MacBooks. I want to access all my files from my Mac. You know, sometimes someone will say, I don't want to install any kind of client. You know, I should be able just to pull up a device and use a browser. Regardless of what platform you're using, we can bridge that gap and get users access to their information, right? So again, Android, iOS, BlackBerry, native apps today. Windows Phone is soon on the horizon. We've also got desktop clients for Windows and for OS X, browser interface. We support WebDAV. So we have a lot of ways to get access to that information, all through this black box, if you will. Filer is essentially this black box virtual architecture. It's a virtual appliance made for VMware, Hyper-V, some other virtualization solutions as well. So you don't have to worry about bringing a server in, installing an OS, trying to install some sort of software on it. Just drop in a very simple solution to bridge that gap between the clients and all the files they want to access, all through secure protocols, you know, SSL-enabled communications. And the other real important thing to think about here is that this does not require any sort of Novell infrastructure whatsoever. If you are a Novell environment, you've got eDirectory, hey, great, you know, we love you, we thank you for that. If you're a Microsoft environment with Active Directory, hey, that's perfectly fine as well. We'll talk to either of those equally via LDAP, so that way users are able to log in with their native credentials to Filer to see all their information. And by their information, we're talking home directories. We're also talking about all the different network drives, file shares, things like that. Not only can I access this information, though, I can very easily share this content. I can share it internally, but I can even share it externally. If I share it with someone who's got a Gmail account, so that person could actually use OpenID and authenticate with their Google credentials. Same thing for Yahoo Mail. If they don't have that, then users can just self-provision, external users, I should say, can self-provision their own password in order to log in. And I see a note here, we lost audio. Oh, I'm back. Okay, thank you. Sorry about the audio snafu there. So again, very easy to share information both internally and externally. All right, continuing on, There are a couple of important things to be aware of is the fact that we are able to index all the content of those files. Now, what does that mean for you? What that means is if I'm a user and I need to find a file and I'm thinking, you know what, I don't remember what it was called, I don't remember where I saved it, and I don't remember when it was saved, but I still need it. Well, they may come to you and say, help me find it. Well, now you can be a magician and say, here it is, because all you got to do is type some text in the search box. As long as the user remembers a word or a phrase in the document, we can go ahead and easily find that information. Right? And then it's also important to note that we can actually proactively notify people whenever changes are made. So that way your users don't have to keep logging into Filer, so to speak, in order to see if there is any new content for them to go ahead and work on. So that being said, a couple more things we'll go through here quickly before then I turn over to Ryan to speak for a few minutes on how his district leverages Filer. You see a screenshot here of an iPad. I'm not going to cover this really yet because you're going to see this in the live demonstration. But what I do want you to note is just the general layout and the look and feel and how that compares to the next slide. So see how there says My Files and Net Folders, and there's some sharing stuff. The next slide, you see the same thing. This, however, is a browser screenshot. This is just showing what someone would see if they logged into Filer using, Chrome or Firefox or something like that. So the point being is that, you don't have to relearn Filer just because you're using a different client. Whether you're using a web client, a mobile client, you're going to see that same interface throughout. And that's really important if you think about it to really drive the adoption of Filer. And then lastly, we do have the desktop client, as I mentioned earlier, for both Windows and OS X. And so you see a sample there of your Filer folders actually being displayed in there with that content being synced for offline access. Very important if I'm using, a MacBook or a Windows laptop. I may not be connected to the network, but I still want to get access to my files, so I can go ahead and do that. Similarly, you can actually do that with the mobile client as well, get offline access. So quickly, I want to highlight a couple of success stories as far as some academic customers that have leveraged Filer. I really like this particular success story. I've worked personally with this district in Wisconsin. They actually moved away from us completely in 2012. We had been acquired by the Attachment Group a year earlier. They were nervous about what's the future direction of Novell. They also were looking at a way of maybe trying to reduce some costs and things like that. So they wind up moving to Zimbra for email. They moved to other open source solutions. Really had a large number of problems. So they wind up coming back to us completely. But as part of that, they had additional products that they never had at all. So this happened actually summer of 2013 when they came back to us. And one of the key things was Filer. They put that in there, and that was really almost like a missing piece for them. Yeah, they also leverage Google Apps because they say, you know what, these are all just tools in the arsenal for teachers and students to use. And so if someone likes Google Apps and being able to share some stuff with Google Drive, they can. But what the district says is, hey, in addition, if you like that experience but want it with all of your files, not just the select few you've uploaded to Google Drive, leverage Novell Filer. So they're able to do that. And of course, now they also have the security of having an on-premise solution for all their files. Another one that's actually really interesting, this is up in Canada. I mentioned Google a minute ago. This is a district, or a school, I should say, that moved completely to Google several years ago, just because, that seems to be the trend. A lot of districts are saying, hey, we should move to Google. They got new IT staff that came in, new IT management, and those folks were a little bit concerned about all this cloud stuff going on, because they're saying, you know what, we don't have any control. We can't tell what people are doing in there. This is a huge security issue. And so what they wound up doing is actually migrating away from Google completely back to a number of different on-premise solutions. They use some Microsoft solutions, and they also leverage Novell Filer. And they really loved what Filer did for them because, again, they were used to Google Drive and said, hey, we've deployed some Microsoft on-premise solutions, but there isn't anything that really is like what Google Drive is. What can we do? And so Novell Filer fit that need for them, and they found that they've got quick user adoption, and they've actually had a number of other schools calling them saying, hey, we're also concerned about security with Google. Tell us about what it was like for you to move away from Google. And then the last one I want to highlight in the higher ed space is the University of Cincinnati, who needed some sort of secure file sharing solution for their faculty staff. So they ultimately implemented Filer, which met that need. They actually also use that in conjunction with a couple of products that are part of the Novell File Management Suite, which is designed to kind of report on and govern and relocate all of the data that you have, whether it be a Novell or Microsoft environment. In this case, these guys are a Novell environment, but it really doesn't matter. Our File Management Suite works in both cases, and definitely we could always speak to that if anyone here has questions. But anyways, the point of it is that Filr gave them a sharing solution. They combined that with the storage management to manage that back-end file storage that was being exposed by Filr, and they found all these products really coming together very well. Filr, File Reporter, and Storage Manager. So again, so just some neat success stories that some of our academic customers have seen. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and pause and actually turn it over to Ryan for a couple of minutes to talk about how his district leverages Filr.
Hey, thanks, Joe. My name is Ryan Rotschlag. I work for the School District of Hartford in Wisconsin. We're a somewhat small K-8 school district, about 1,700 students, a couple hundred staff. The main reason why we started using Filr was basically we didn't want to lose control over our files. We do have Google Apps, so we do have the ability to use Drive, but the main thing we try to steer people towards Filr is just so we don't lose those files out there, especially going one-to-one now with our students in the past few years. A big thing has become students sharing passwords, and they delete their friends' Google Drive files, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about those. With Filr, you're leveraging your existing environment, so you got your backups of your files, and it's not a huge deal when a student decides to pull a little prank on his friend. Another thing was being able to access our files on the go. We are using net storage and phasing that out in lieu of Filr, and that's giving our staff access on all their iPads as more and more of them are getting those, also their smartphones, and as well as the Filr web interface. So basically it combines kind of the best of all the worlds. You have your existing file infrastructure, and everybody can use their home directories and see those files anywhere in the world on pretty much any device. So it's really flexible for us, and it just really helps our users be a little more productive and kind of catch up with the rest of the world. I don't know if there's any questions out there of specifically if anybody's doing one-to-one initiatives or anything. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, I was talking and didn't realize I was on mute. I'm not seeing any questions come in here, Ryan. So what I think I'll do is I'll go ahead and move ahead and start doing the demo. But first of all, thank you, for kind of talking about that. And then we'll see too as we continue on here in the last 10 minutes or so if any additional questions come in as far as what you're doing in particular or just about Filr in general.
All right.
So. All right, so let's go ahead and let me actually minimize my PowerPoint here. All right, so I'm actually mirroring my iPad screen in here so I can show you the Filr client. And I've actually got a number of Novell-related apps on my iPad because we have a number of different mobile solutions. But we're going to talk about Filr today, so let me go into Filr. And again, as you saw in the screenshot a little bit earlier, was we've got this My Files, Net Folder, some other things. So I actually want to kind of talk a little bit about what these different areas are. The My Files area, I like to think of that as my stuff, right? So that's going to be my home directory in the environment. I'm going to automatically get access to that when you, as the administrator, set up Filr and import the users. Now, we don't call it my stuff because that's not exactly a technical term, so that's what My Files is. The net folders on the other side, that's just Filr speak for, again, shared drives, shared folders, map drives, whatever you want to call them. So all the different data that you've got out there that different faculty, staff, students are using that really are outside of their own home directories. And then we have ways to access some shared content and things like that. But let me go ahead and just hop in here and show you how we could actually then leverage Filer. So I'm going to navigate down to a particular folder. I personally am a big fan of hot sauce, so that's why I've got this set up here with Dave's and Sandy sauce and Frank's hot sauce and Tabasco. And I'll go into the Tabasco folder here. Now, again, I use that because I like hot sauce, but what I'm about to show, those could be classes, right? That could be Mrs. Smith's 7th grade math classes is one of those. And then if Mrs. Smith teaches a few other classes, she could have folders set up for every one of those classes or something like that. I mean, in this case, I'm doing this Tabasco folder, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this picture called Hot, 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 this is actually a real picture I took of a habanero pepper I chopped up one day for a pot of chili. Made it a little spicy, but it was good. But the point being is that, let's say I'm actually an art teacher, and what I want to do is say, because I love hot sauce, that inspires me. A chopped up habanero pepper, something that personally inspires me, and so I might do a painting or something based on that. So as part of a project, maybe I want to share this with the different students in my class to say, okay, this inspires me. What inspires you? All right, so if I want to share it, I can just click the little informational button, and you can see I'm already showing kind of a list of some of the people I've shared it with. But if I hit the share button, I'll get the dialogue up here so that I can actually share this content. So you can see where I've shared this with a few users. I've got my name, Joe Martin, at the very top, and that's actually showing it as an external user because I've shared it with I think I use my Yahoo Mail account in that particular case. So I can very easily share internally or externally, again, assuming you as administrator allow this, by the way. Keep that in mind. Everything I'm showing you here is governed by policy within Filer. You determine which of these features are accessible. I've got one customer that recently put in Filer. They don't even want anyone using a mobile device accessing it. The only thing they want is for faculty and staff, when they're at home, to be able to log into a browser and get access to their H drives, their home directories. That's it, right? So there's all sorts of ways to kind of slice and dice this. But anyways, let's say I want to go ahead and share this, and I could start typing in the name of a colleague, Oscar Sanchez, who's in here. And all I got to do is type his name and tap on it. That name is coming across via LDAP, again, E directory or Active Directory. We don't care which of those. And I can choose a few things here. I can choose what sort of access he has. Can he only view it, or can he actually edit the file? If this was actually a folder, because I can share an entire folder if I want to, I could even say you're allowed to add new content, upload new files into that folder. Right? So, and then beyond the access, I can also choose an expiration. That can be really useful, for instance, if a teacher wants to share a set of files with everyone in his or her class only for the duration of the semester. You can say, you know what, at the end of the semester it's going to expire, and I could just choose to have it expire on a specific date, right? And I don't know what the end of the semester is, so I'm not going to put in a date. You can see just put in the current one. Anyways, when I share that out, after that date expires, if a user logs into Filer and goes to shared with me, they're not going to see that content anymore. So that's very important. Right. Then we've also got some things as far as if you share to an internal user, can that person reshare the information? And I could type in a note. And just as easily as I did the internal user, as I noted, I can share externally as well, again, assuming the administrator allows me to do this. So all I have to do is start typing in. Now I've got my Gmail account because I've just got addresses all over the place. I've got Gmail, I've got Yahoo Mail, I've got GroupWise running here at home. You can see once I type in an email address, Filer picks it up, recognizes that as an email address, and says, hey, that's an external user. All right. So anyway, so I can share, and the other thing is, once I've shared it with people, we can actually collaborate on the file. I don't know how many of you have noticed that on the bottom right there, where it has the number 4, shows there's 4 comments. Now, when I first heard that we're going to have comments in Filer, I thought, why do I need that? I comment on Facebook posts. Why would I comment on files? Well, if you think about it, if we look at how people used to share files, remember those different examples earlier, and one was email. Let's say I was emailing this file back and forth. I would never just send a blank email and attach a file and hope the person knows what to do with it. Rather, I would send the file, and in the email, I would type something out like, hey, check out the changes I made on page 12, or something like that, right? So if now I'm doing it all in Filer, right, and I'm working through there as part of a class or part of a team doing a project, whatever, how do we communicate together? If I had to drop to email to still say, hey, go check out this thing that I did in Filer, it's still not very efficient. So by having this commenting ability, I can basically take all that dialogue, all that collaboration that happens around that file and really associate it with the file. Doesn't change your file system at all. This is all stored within Filer itself. The comments and some of the sharing information, right? All this metadata, if you will, is stored in Filer. But the point is, now it's associated with the file, so I can make Filer my one single stop to get access to find my information, to share my information, and to collaborate on my information with other people. Very, very important thing to note here with Filer. All right. So now, let's say too, though, that all right, cool. I've got this picture here, and maybe I wanted to do something else. As a quick aside, I want to say, for those of you who haven't signed up for Friday's webinar to talk about mobile printing and iPrint, we do have a mobile printing solution. So right from Filer, I could pick any file, say open in Novell iPrint, and this would come up and actually allow me to print this document, by the way. So quick preview, and we'll be talking more about that on Friday. But let me go back into Filer. And again, so I've showed you how I can share and collaborate and stuff. The other thing I want to really show off is the searching capability. So, I mentioned earlier that I can index content. With Filer, we can index it. We can find that content. Well, how does that look from an end user perspective? So let me go ahead and search on the word cucumber. And you can see a couple of hits have come up. And both of those files, you don't see the word cucumber in the file name. In gray underneath, and I don't know if you can see it very well, that's the path. It's not in the folder name. But if I tap on the file itself, you can see this is my mom's Hungarian recipes, and this truly is my mom's Hungarian recipes. It's not a made-up document. If I scroll a little bit, hopefully you can see that it's bolded in the middle of the page, cucumber salad. It's a recipe for cucumber salad. But the point being, I searched for the word cucumber, found this file that had the word cucumber in it, even though that is nowhere in the file name or anything like that. So again, very easy to use search and very powerful search. All right. The last thing that I wanted to show off again is how we can consume information in Filer. And what I mean is this. So earlier, I tapped on that photo that displayed in here. I could that Mom's Hungarian Recipes as a Word doc that displayed. Notice on this file, which is an old OpenOffice 1.0 format file, it says unable to view it, and that's because iOS does not have any kind of built-in viewer for the file. Well, I still will want to maybe look at this, even though iOS can't do anything. If I tap Generate Preview, you're going to see something come up here, and see now that's the content of the file. We're able to actually take almost 600 different file types, convert them to HTML, render it as HTML, send that to the client so that you can display it, whether you're iOS, Android. If you're in the web client, there's a View as HTML option. The point being is that you shouldn't have to install any other application to at least consume the data. Now, if I want to do some work on this, if I want to edit this, then yeah, I need an app that can support this type of file. But without that app, I can still view it. Editing, though, is fairly easy. Just as I showed you a minute ago how I could print, I could also say open in, say, Documents to Go, if Documents to Go supported this. I've done it with Word docs. Make my changes in Documents to Go and then say open in Novell Filer, and I'm able to send it back. All right, so that's just, again, a very quick intro into Filer, kind of showing some of the use cases there of how this can be beneficial in your environment. Looking one more time, I don't really see anything question-wise. Oh, I see something come in right now. Can Filer leverage off-prem storage like cloud storage? That's a great question. Not something that it can do today. However, we are looking at this for the future because in particular we do have a solution called a Dynamic File Services for Windows that can actually be implemented on a Windows file server to archive data to the cloud, like Amazon S3, for instance. And so since we already have the code for it, we're looking at how we could implement that with Filer. So ultimately, if you like it, Filer, and let's say the bulk of your data is on-prem, but you have some on-premise cloud storage that you would also like to access, we want to bring that into Filer so that Filer could actually be the one-stop that users go to for all their data, regardless of where they're going. SharePoint is another place where we're looking at adding support for. But with that, I think we've reached the top of the hour, so thanks for that. Oh, I see some more questions starting to come in now. Where can I find out more information about equipment and configuration requirements on my servers to use Filer? The best place really is the Filer documentation. If you go to novell.com/documentation, from there you can scroll down, you'll find Novell Filer in the list. The installation guide will actually have some prerequisite information that talk about things like disk space, how much memory you need to allocate to the virtual appliance. Do you use one virtual appliance or several, things like that. So all of that's in the documentation, or again, you can reach out to us. Okay, my name is Joe Martin. My email address for those of you on here, jmartin, J-M-A-R-T-O-N @novell.com. And then you should also be receiving a follow-up email from Patrick Hines. You can also reply to that if you want to get in contact. We can discuss in more detail things like system requirements and things like that.
And Joe, they can also register to download the free trial, and what is it, 60-day or 90-day trial of Filer?
60-day, great point, Ryan. Thank you. Yeah, we have a free evaluation download, 60-day download of Filer. Or if you just want to get an idea of the end-user experience but not spinning anything up in your own environment, we even have a hosted instance of Filer for demonstration purposes, again, for 60 days that we can provision access. Is this webinar recorded? Yes, it is recorded, actually. I almost forgot to hit the recording button, but I did hit that. So it is, and we'll be getting some information out on that as well as far as accessing this recording later on.
Yep. Just one last quick note. Just so people who want to go out and try Filer, remember it doesn't touch your existing file servers or anything, so you don't have to worry about, oh, what do I have to configure on my file servers? And but no, it's pretty much touch-free, and you don't have to worry about it. If you don't use it after the 60 days, you're not going to have to reconfigure anything. So it's pretty much a drop in the middle, and it works just fine.
There you go. Great point. Thank you very much, Ryan. Well, with that, I think we've run over by a couple of minutes. So again, thank you everyone for joining today. Really appreciate your time, the questions that we've had that come in. Hopefully this information was very useful to you. And again, feel free to contact any of us here at Novell, and we'd be more than happy to answer additional questions or help you out with your evaluations. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.